Hello and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. I'm your host Alex, and with me I have Dan. How are you, Dan?
Yeah, I'm all right. A little bit weary at the moment, but yeah, I'm okay considering, I suppose.
Yeah, bright and early start for us with these midweek games, which I think is just about to change with the change in daylight savings. Although, of course, that then means that the weekend games become a bit more of a struggle for us. It's a bit of a trade off in that sense. But yeah, we'll talk about that Blackpool game in a little bit. But we'll start with that Stoke game on the weekend, and how it's sadly become a bit of a predictable result in the sense that no goals scored, looking sort of bright and lively when it's 0-0, but then a couple of lapses in concentration, and before you know it, it's 2-0, and the game's pretty much gone. But I guess it was, Jones came back into the defence for Bernard, was probably the main change to the side from the Sheffield United result. Tyler Smith getting a start as well for Magennis. So good to see a little bit of a change in that sense. But how did you see the game and how the game played out?
I was really confused by this game. I thought we started really strong and we were uh, had them under a fair bit of pressure and were pressing high and pressing really well and effectively and creating turnovers, but just lacking that end polish. And then after like 15 or 20 minutes, it almost just completely turned around and we just gave them space and possession and just almost ceded the game to them. And in typical fashion, that first goal was just before half time, as they normally
Yeah.
sort of are. Um, I don't really want to talk to those goals. Both frustrated me. I think the Vranjic one was off what should have been a free kick to Wilkes, I think, on the edge of their box or something.
That
And
was, I
or
think
was that
that
the
the Wilkes
second one?
free kick was before the power goal. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, okay. I can't, but oh, that's
yeah.
right. He flicked it between two of our midfielders. They both Doherty and someone, I think, both pressed him. He flicked it through them and then
Yeah.
ran the length of the field. Right, that's why that one annoyed me. Um,
And then of course, was it Jones and Coyle? I think, or maybe it was Greaves and Coyle both dived in on him. Where I'm just like,
yeah,
just keep your feet.
yeah. It was frustrating to watch, and it was sort of like typical of the season so far. Lots and lots of endeavor and trying to create, and these moments where we, are pushing forward and doing really well, and it's all undone by these 30-second like collapses where
Mm.
it's like we're all at sea for 30 seconds, and I don't understand why, and then it just turns the game on its head, and whatever confidence we were building by performing well is eradicated and destroyed, and we then look like a team who is nowhere near like scoring or creating much.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a really weird one. I mean, I think I saw the stat that we've got the sixth worst attack and we've got the sixth worst defense, but presumably the sides who have a worse attack or a worse defense are better off in the other stat. So
mm,
we're almost the worst because of the fact that we're poor at both.
yeah,
It feels like that at times. It's such a strange sort of game to watch City play at the moment. When, as you say, we feel like we're in a lot of these games. We're not. I mean, the Sheffield United game, even there, we had a couple. We had a 10-minute spell at the start of the game that looked quite good. So it's not like we're getting blown off the park by sides at the moment, but we just consistently unable to get a result.
yeah. I think we were talking about I don't know in our chat last week or at some point recently about the feelings we're like the vibe we get from the team and the performances in general. And I was saying I don't get the same recollections of that last 6 months we had in the championship before we went down, where it looked like nobody had any ideas and we were bereft of any energy, and it was sort of like a foregone conclusion. There's clearly lots of effort there, but those it's just those key moments, and I don't know what you put it down to. I think part of it's recruitment. I think when you
Yeah.
look at who is performing, um, you know, the ones who have championship experience are the ones who are actually like Monco, who came from a championship club, is one of the only ones who's really like seems to be comfortable at the level, and a lot of the others, I think that it's starting to turn, and we're starting to get used to the pace and everything, but it's really been like it just I guess that's part of what it is with like when you recruit from a lower level players that have never played at this level before, um, and even the guys that have but played in League One last year, which is most of our squad, there's that adjustment. But I often in these periods at the beginning of the seasons, how we're going to go. Oh, I sort of say, give it 10 games and we judge from there. Well, it's been 10. We're just at 10 games, I think, from after this morning. And overall, it's pretty poor. At the end of the day, results are what counts. And as positive as some parts of these performances have been, we have not yet in 10 games been able to put a 90-minute performance together.
Yeah.
Even the Preston game, where we win 4-1, you could not even call that a 90-minute performance. So
that was only about, was it half an hour? I think they were in front for most of that game.
It was a blitz in the last little bit, and I think that's what's particularly frustrating. If we stay in these games for these long periods, and if we can just keep our nerve or our focus for those few key moments off our set pieces and things like that, because they're another point of concern at the moment, then I think we'll start turning those 1-0 losses into 0-0 draws, or into a 1-0 win, and those sorts of things, just turning slowly and slowly. But
which arguably we did this morning. We'll talk about the game this morning in a second, anyway. But with Eaves coming on and getting that equaliser, it does start to feel like maybe the tide turns in that sense, because yes, going into the game, we probably should have been expecting 3 points against Blackpool, but at the end of the day, you come away with a 10-man performance, getting an equaliser late on, and it does feel like a win. And sometimes that's all you need. You need that bit of self-belief and confidence in the squad that, hey, luck might be turning. We might be getting a few things going our way that, I can imagine for the squad, you look at the Tyler Smith goal ruled out against Sheffield United, you look at the really unlucky or unfortunate keeping error against Derby that cost us the game there. You look at a few things like that where I'm sure as the squad could look at it and say, we're trying, we're putting in the effort, but it's just not falling our way. That maybe finally that goal, that equaliser against Blackpool, is the start of a bit of a turn, and you just get a bit of a confidence into the squad, and it's a good fixture next as well to really try and put that right.
Yeah, I think there is an element of poor luck that's afflicted us so far, and I hope that you're right, that this is sort of acts as a turning point. I think it will spur the players on, and give them a little bit more belief, because while we admittedly, we earned ourselves a draw in the last with a late goal, we almost very well took all 3 points as well with a very fine save from their keeper very late on, to deny Tyler Smith. So there's certainly there are some good things starting to happen. There are still other things that I think still need changing. I still am yet to see anything from Wilkes from like what he was last season.
That's interesting. We'll talk about Wilkes. We'll give our 3-2-1s for the Stoke game, and then we'll talk about the Blackpool game, because I actually tweeted out just before the podcast something about Wilkes. So we'll see, because I think we'll be slightly different views on that.
I didn't see that.
No, it's all good. Look, I'll give my 3 votes to Elder for the Stoke game. I was having a look at some of the stats, and he actually led the defence for clearances, interceptions, and tackles, which was really good to see. And I think he's definitely going under the radar in terms of having a reasonable season, which is still something that I struggle to comprehend, because I feel like our entire back five, including the keeper, are actually having a reasonable season. So I think it comes back to our point about a bit of bad luck, because I just don't understand how we've conceded as many goals as we have, when I can't actually pinpoint anyone in the defence as a particular issue or a particular vulnerability. But yeah, so 3 votes to Elder.
Wilkes on set pieces.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. I've given the 2 votes to Doherty. Again, sort of, I went a bit stat heavy with these votes, because I was struggling to think of anyone to give votes to against Stoke otherwise. But he led our midfield for pass accuracy, which was good to see, and so he was putting a lot of the plays together and getting us forward when he could, which was really impressive. And then I gave 1 vote to Longman. I thought he was good off the bench and really provided a bit of a lift for us and a bit of spark, but it was a bit tough to come up with votes for this one. How did you find it?
To be honest, hadn't even thought about it. But looking back, I mean, I don't even think I could find a way to really argue with the names you've put forward. There's no one else that really stands out in my memory as someone who's deserving of the points. So I guess for that reason alone, I will give the same 3-2-1.
Happy days. Okay, well, we'll talk about the Blackpool game now then. And we did make a couple of changes for this one. It was Cannon coming in for Smallwood, Longman in for Tyler Smith, and Moncur in for Matt Smith. And we had Longman then basically take up Wilkes' position wide right with Wilkes up top, which, I mean, we keep saying, well, can we change things up? Can we try something different? And it's clear that McCann is trying different things, but it just seems like the one most obvious thing that he could change, which is the formation, he hasn't been able to do at the start. And I do, there's a part of me that just thinks there must be something coming from above, from Ehab and Assam, to say 4-3-3 is our DNA. That's the way you've got to play all your games. And we saw later on in the game, we switched to a 4-4-2 when Eaves came on, and we had Eaves and Tyler Smith up top. And surprise, surprise, we scored a goal. And then, as you said,
it was more like a 4-2-4, I think.
Well, maybe it was, yeah, true. Maybe it was more of a 4-2-4, depending on where. Was it still Wilkes and KLP, or was it Long? Yeah, I think it was still Wilkes and KLP, because Wilkes didn't come off, did he?
Did he? I don't know.
So 4-2-4 or 4-4-2, and then it became a 3-4-2 sort of thing a bit later on when Quell got sent off. But surprise, surprise, we changed the formation. We tried something quite tangibly different, and we did manage to score. And then Tyler Smith almost got the winner at the end. So it's good to see he's trying different things. I don't know if Wilkes as a centre forward is the thing to try, but I still think it comes back to the formation, and we just need to try something a bit more drastic.
Yeah, look, I think look, it worked. That it was certainly successful last season, but I guess like you're talking about, what I saw his record the other day. It was like 22 losses out of 28 games or something in the championship, which is an atrocious record.
8 points from 20 something games, I think it is.
Something mental. So obviously, he hasn't figured out how to make it work at this level, or he doesn't have the caliber of players or the right players to make it work at this level, or whatever it is. But I think you're right. Like, change, might be exactly what's required. Even if it's even just as simple as going to a 4-4-2, or with a diamond in the middle or something. I don't know. Anything would probably be a nice change. But I think what we get with the 4-3-3, that one of the main reasons this doesn't work is our three get so isolated from each other. You got KLP on one wing and Wilkes on another, and then Magennis or Tyler Smith or Eaves or whoever ends up just standing in the middle, and they're all so far apart. If we get to when we did change, and then we essentially played with two up top, you had guys that were near enough to each other to actually support when the ball got up there. And we saw, as you mentioned, bit of pressure, bit of play. We're able to actually pass it two players around the box and then put it in the back of the net. So I think two up top's a good shout.
Yeah, and I think, as we've always said with Eaves, it was such a, maybe not a strange signing when we brought him in, but it was a signing that didn't really seem to suit our formation or our style of play, where he does seem the sort who likes to have someone playing off him. And why not come out next game with Tyler Smith and Eaves starting as our strikers, and have Tyler Smith able to play off Eaves. Eaves can bring the ball down and play Tyler Smith through. That seems to make so much sense to me. Yeah, and then you could essentially have a 4-2-4 formation, because you would have KLP and Wilkes, traditionally speaking, as sort of midfielders, but they'd really be operating as wingers. Maybe that's too attacking, but at the same time, do we have too much to lose trying something that drastically different? I think it's all academic, because I still don't think we would make that sort of change. Just based on my gut instinct that we are being told that we have to play a 4-3-3, but the results are the proof's in the pudding. Like, we got the point against Blackpool, arguably because of that change to bring on the second striker.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's hard to say, because I find there's lots that words. I think it happens more frequently than you would think, that a team who has a man advantage and is up, that 1-0 is a very dangerous scoreline, especially against 10 men for some reason. The amount of games I've watched where that 10-man team has been able to score a late equaliser or something, whether it's just through a lack of, they take their foot off the gas or whatever. But I'm glad it was worked in our favour today, but yeah.
Yeah, so it's a tough one, and it'll certainly be interesting to see what happens next week against Borough. I'll give, or how about you can give your 3-2-1 votes for this one first.
Unfortunately, I've looked at your votes already, but I probably would go the same for my 3 points. And something that I alluded to in our chat as well was, the fact that he rejected a move away because he wanted to stay and fight for his place, and even after that was not on the bench for about 4 games in a row. Finally gets onto the bench, finally gets onto the field, and is actually, the hero of the day, man of the moment. Bambi on ice, Tom Eaves.
He's making a habit of it. I mean, we've got the last minute goal against Fulham 2 seasons ago. We had the equaliser against Swansea in the 4-4 draw. We had the winner in I'm giving a bit away here for something we're going to talk about in a second, but he got the final goal in that FA Cup game against Rotherham to give us the 3-2 win. He's got, I think he probably did it once or twice last season as well, and now he got the assist right at the end on the first day of this season, and now the goal here. He likes to the last 5 or 10 minutes of games is quickly becoming Eaves time.
Yeah, and look, I think that's, when we can make it work like we did today, that's sort of what suits him, to come on with a bit of tired defense. He's a big body and he can put himself about a bit, but he doesn't sort of seem to have the legs to last, or to make that work for 70 or 80 minutes. But for a solid half hour or 20 minutes, he can do a job. I think he, took a ball down on the wing, I think, in the lead up to the Smith attempt. Is that one? I think.
Yeah, might have been that one.
Long boot out from Ingram, and I think he took it down, brought it down on the wing, and then played it in for KLP or something. I can't remember, but he gets about. He's a big, strong lad, and he does well. But anyway, back onto the thing. Who else was really impressive for me? It's a good question. I actually thought Cannon had a pretty decent game, to be honest. I'll probably go Moncur for 2 points. I think he's just the only one who doesn't seem to be afraid to take shots. He just gets in the area and he goes of having a go. Whereas it seems lots of others want to try and get too tricky. I guess they're worried, they're panicking or freaking out because we haven't scored and they're desperate to make it count or whatever.
Overthinking it, yeah.
Yeah, but he seems to just get in the area and have a go, and he might have 5 shots a game and one might be one on target, but they're normally the one on target is normally requires quite a decent save to keep it out. So I'll go 2 to Moncur and I'll give 1 to Cannon. I think it's his first start in the league, and I thought had a very serviceable game, involved in some nice things, worked hard. So that's how I'll divvy it up.
Fair enough. Yeah, so I'll go with Eaves for the 3 as well. I think it's hard to go past the player who gets the goal to earn us a point. It's the first, I guess, point earning goal that we've scored since the opening day, considering the KLP's goal against Sheffield United was consolation. So, I'll give Eaves the 3 votes there. I've gone Lewis Potter the 2, partly obviously teeing up Eaves for that goal, but also because I think of our forward 3, he was probably the most lively. He had 3 shots that were all blocked. So that kind of is a testament to your point about the fact that, maybe players starting to overthink that goal drought and taking a bit of time on the ball. And, it's such a weird one when you look at like Blackpool and Derby both came to the KCOM or the MKM and set up very much behind the ball and sort of parking the bus against us. And you sort of think, geez, we're second bottom in the league. Come on, cut us a bit of slack, give us a bit more space to operate in, because it's, it'd be like, it'd be like a side going to Norwich in the Premier League and parking the bus against them and they get up 1-0. I'm sure you'd feel pretty frustrated as a supporter when it's happening against your side, when you're not even scoring that many goals to begin with. You're not much of a threat. and any chance of a threat is kind of snuffed out. But so I'll give the 2 to KLP just because he did seem to be he was sort of dropping deep. He was trying to pick up the ball and drive it forward when he could as well. So I thought that was a good performance from him. And then I'll give Moncur the 1. As you said, he had 3 shots, did quite well, had a high pass accuracy as well. So he was sort of zipping the ball around as well. We did sort of talk in the chat, I guess, and this probably helps pad out that pass accuracy stat, is the fact that we're doing a lot of sideways and backwards passing. So it's pretty easy to complete a pass when you're passing it backwards or sideways 5 meters or something like that. But I think he was certainly one that was trying to drive us forward and create a few chances as well. So I'll give him the 1 vote. Now, just before we move on to our next feature, we did have a comment in the chat, which I thought was worth discussing as a sort of semi-separate point, and that was coming from Matt Ward here saying, still we got a draw against Blackpool, but McCann needs to go. Allams want this club to hit rock bottom. Love my club, love my city, but slowly losing it. I guess when we were talking about what can change, drastic change would be the formation. Even more drastic change would be the manager, and we do have that sort of sense that the Allams are quite happy to keep him on. He's a yes man, so to speak. He's not going to sort of kick up a stink with them. Do you get the sense that pretty much the only way there'd be a change of manager is if this takeover happens or if McCann walks?
Yeah, look, I fully 100%. I can't see the Allams deciding to end this relationship with McCann for a couple of reasons. As you said, he seems to be a bit of a yes man. They can just say do this, and he sort of is okay with that. The other is that I would imagine that based on his managerial experience or championship experience when he signed, and his results so far in the championship, that he probably isn't on a huge pay packet. And if they sack him and you try and bring in someone who has at least some level of championship pedigree, you're going to have to pay more. And we know that the Allams don't like to pay things. So, or pay like decent wages. So I think the other reason is that financial thing. They're so desperate to not invest any more money than they absolutely have to until they can get rid of the club. And so I guess for that reason and that reason alone, I really do hope that this takeover happens. But there are some tempered thoughts with that whole situation as well, based on some of the talk from the potential purchasers. So
yeah,
but yeah, I don't think McCann will go until that potentially eventuates. I think if that did happen, then I think that would probably be the one change that they would probably want to make very quickly.
There's the 2 Chris's waiting in the wings, Chris Hughton and Chris Wilder. I think Wilder was actually at the Stoke game, presumably just doing some scouting. I wouldn't read too much into that. But, of course, an out-of-work manager who's got a reasonable pedigree at this level being in attendance at the game is going to get tongues wagging. So it'll certainly be interesting. I think with regards to the takeover, I think the international break is going to be really interesting. I think from what I've heard, or rumors or whatever, that it sounds like if something's going to happen, it could well happen over that break. But we've sort of talked about it a bit on the podcast, and I think it's one of those things now where until we get that, stereotypical corner flag image with a club statement announcing something's happening, there's not too much more to get worked up over with that takeover news until something more concrete happens. Okay, well, let's move on then, and we'll do our triple flashback feature. So this is where I will give you a question with 3 answers, and I'll see if you can get all 3. If you get stuck, I will try and give you a couple of clues to help you along with your guesses. I sort of already gave you a clue with a bit of earlier discussion anyway, but the question for this week is, can you name the last 3 players to score a hat-trick for us? And this is in any competition, so league or cup.
All right. Well, because of your clue, and I think I probably would have remembered this one anyway, because of his hilarious comments about taking the ball home and kicking the wife out of the bedroom. Tom Eaves is one. I would have to go. I'm thinking probably Hernandez would be another who definitely would have got his hat trick in the championship in his at some point in that 22 or whatever 25 goal season that he had, surely. And the third, I'm not sure. I feel like the third one mustn't. I don't think it's that old either, but I feel like it's a little bit left field, one that I wouldn't think of straight away, but I can't.
So the third one's actually the most recent, and that was coming. It came last season.
Who got us a hat trick last season? Did
Magennis
get a hat trick? Or
so the player was snapped with a picture of the match ball, and there were a few interesting comments written on the ball. It's a player. Oh, actually, and this is a player that we didn't have our discussion about during the last game, but maybe we'll bring up during the preview. But it's Malik Wilkes.
Yeah, right.
Got his hat trick against Wigan.
Oh,
Is it when I think we beat them 5-0 or something like that? But yeah, he got. Whereas, like, he scored with his right foot, and he was just like, I didn't even know I had a right foot, but managed to score. And Hernandez's goals hat trick was actually against Burton in the 17-18 season. So that was, I think, when he'd been out injured for most of the season, so we hadn't been able to sell him, and he came back in with Adkins, and I think it was like we beat them 5-0 or something like that. So and you were correct on Eaves in the FA Cup against Rotherham, managing to get the hat trick and a 3-2 win, and as you said, taking the match ball home and kicking the misses out, which was good to see, or good to hear. Cool. Okay. Well, we'll move on then, and we'll talk about the Middlesbrough game, which is shaping. I mean, we sort of talked about the Blackpool game as a must-win game, and if that was a must-win game, certainly the Middlesbrough game is as well. Neil Warnock, manager there, has been since I think it was one of his first matches for them was the game against us, where we won our one and only match in the second half of that championship season. So has a bit of experience against the Grant McCann Hull City side. Had been under a bit of pressure recently with their performances at Middlesbrough, but did get a pretty good win against Sheffield United this morning, winning 2-0. So that might alleviate a little bit of pressure on them as things stand. But they've had a pretty decent winning record against us recently, other than that game 2 seasons ago. I think they'd won 5 of the last 6 or something, where we hadn't beaten them since that 4-2 win in the Premier League. But 2 wins in 5 wins against Forest and Sheffield United for them. So not in the best of form. Certainly a side that we should be looking at, that if we're going to turn this run of results around, this is probably the game for it.
Look, I feel like maybe it was. I remember talking about. I have vague memories of talking about the new manager bounce when we've talked about versing Middlesbrough before. So perhaps that must have been very close to the start of his reign last time. But how is this going to go? Hopefully good. Like I guess, like, just carrying off what we're saying. Hopefully, this late equalizer and this late surge in this game, has instilled some level of confidence and belief within our own players. But it's so hard to say at the moment. It seems like every time they look like they're going to improve, then they come out and play even worse. I mean, I probably wouldn't be surprised to see this end up as another 1-1 draw or something like that, if I'm being honest. I'd love to see us snatch a win, but it just...
I think as things stand, I almost feel like if we concede, we can't win. Like, at best, we're going to get a draw, because I just can't see us scoring 2 goals in a game, and especially against a Warnock side. I think they're going to be another side that basically puts men behind the ball if they need to keep us out, and it's just going to be... I just feels like, which is a really odd thing to say, because I feel like last season we should have had so much practice breaking down parked buses, and the fact that we're still sort of struggling to unlock defenses, and obviously, yes, they're at a higher level, but it's not as if it's not as if men behind the ball isn't something that we've had to put up with for an entire season. So it's a frustrating one. But I did want to get your thoughts. We sort of talked a little bit before about Wilkes, and I guess my perception of him is a little bit more optimistic, where I look at it that I don't think he had a preseason. he was out injured for the preseason, wasn't he? And then he started against Preston, which we were a little bit surprised about, and then was out injured, and then only came back after this more recent international break. So uh, I guess my optimism is I'm hoping that if he gets through this Borough game, has that 2 week period over the international break to get his fitness and confidence levels up a bit more. Um, he's actually got surprisingly good hold up play, I've found. And I don't remember him doing it as much last season. And to be honest, maybe it's just because he doesn't really know what to do with the ball. He just sort of, shields the ball and tries to draw a free kick. But he seems to be a bit lacking in confidence and lacking in direction to push the ball forward. But it seems like one of those things where if he can get a goal, or if it's late in the game and we're up 1 or 2-0, like in that Preston game, that's the sort of perfect scenario where having him and KLP running at the fences will actually be really a sort of a strength of ours. And he just doesn't seem to have that confidence at the moment. So look, maybe everyone's right, and maybe he just needs a spell on the bench, on the sideline to sort of recoup, get his head back in the game. But I'm not as downbeat on him as a lot of people are.
Yeah, look, I do concede that point that he has not played as much football as he probably could, or as he could have, or as he would have had he been fit, and that probably has played a factor in his performances. But I just, I when I watch him, like I feel like as an unfit player, or whatever, I would still be expecting like some momentary bursts of something, and I'm not. He just seems to be pretty mediocre, sort of for just pretty much the whole time. He's not done anything that's really interested me. He doesn't even really want to attack the defenders or anything that much
Yeah.
anymore. I mean, in saying that, I think there's been a couple of moments in the last couple of games where he's actually has improved, where he's starting to he shielded that ball and then tried to roll inside and run along the edge of the box, which was something a bit of a hallmark last season. So perhaps maybe he is starting to turn a corner. But I mean, I guess the flip side is if we do sit him on the bench just for a game or whatever, who replaces him? Because
Longman,
Longman
maybe.
has
Yeah.
not. I don't think he's been particularly
Mm.
impressive. Apart from he's probably a bit the opposite of Wilkes, showing some moments of brilliance, I guess. But beyond that, he made maybe against Sheffield or one of those, a late run and shot was, I think, one of our whatever game it was. He was like our only shot on target the whole game.
Oh, Swansea, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, and a couple of like little moments where he's done something, but for the large majority, I haven't been too impressed. I probably expected a bit more.
I'm a bit surprised that we haven't been trying Wilkes on the left. Only in saying that, only because seeing him this morning, it felt like he wanted to cross the ball in and then kept trying to get the ball onto his left foot to cross the ball in because he just has no confidence on his right. So
Yeah.
it just seems really strange to me to play him on the right hand side, where unless he's sort of cutting back and doing sort of an inverted cross into the box, it makes more sense to me to try and get him on the left hand side where he can have much more confidence of running to the byline and whipping a ball in. It just doesn't seem to be playing to his strengths.
Well, they seem to. I guess that's something that's been missing because last season they seemed to switch around a bit.
Mm.
Wilkes and KLP would occasionally switch wings for a period for 10 or 15 minutes, which seemed to not only either shuffle the defense or upset their defense a little bit, because you got to then get accustomed to a new attacker that you're trying to mark. But that and the interchangeable movements that we had last season between that forward three, which were what we were praising so much last season, hasn't seemed to be very present either. So, I mean, I'm all for. I absolutely would agree with you that if that Wilkes and whether it's KLP or whoever, but should occasionally be switching it up and trying to change things, even if it just means that sure, Wilkes gets an opportunity to gain some confidence, cross the ball in on his left, attack, on that side at the very least. Because I think KLP he'll still get around the left back down the right side, and I think still be able to do something. So I don't know. I guess it's weird. Why? The questions for McCann. Why haven't we done these things?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, like he put him central this morning, which shows that he's at least trying to work Wilkes into the game. But I don't think at this level Wilkes has I mean, having said that, he does seem to have good physicality with shielding the ball, but I don't know if he's got the tenacity to be a centre forward at this level. But look, I'm hopeful that Eaves getting on and scoring that equaliser does mean that there's a few other options that we'll try out. I'd love to see Smith and Eaves starting up top for us in this game against Borough, but I don't hold high hopes for that happening. Maybe I think it's probably going to come too soon for Honeyman as well. I think he's meant to be out till after the international break, so that's the other big frustration, is that we still just haven't really seen our best 11 on the park. Because Honeyman came on against Sheffield United and then has been back injured since then.
Yeah.
So,
that's a whole other issue for McCann. I don't understand. I get like that Honeyman's was super important and influential for us last year, but he's just had this huge layoff, and then you go, oh well, we need someone to do something. So you pick the guy who really only needs to play 15 minutes to get out there and get up to speed and get some touches on the ball in a game environment, and you give him 45, and then he gets injured again. It's an injury. It's probably just an unlucky thing, but you sort of go, is that just poor player management in that, management of the injury? Is that a poor decision that is going to come back and bite us?
And then the other one is Huddleston, where it's almost the opposite, where he did try to give him really good player management. He sort of rested him against, I think it was Swansea, maybe not Swansea, maybe it was the game after that, Sheffield United, Blackburn, where he rested him against Blackburn. And then in a really light training session, does his hamstring, is out for 10 days, 10, 14 days. Where, people are saying, I don't think it's a coincidence that our 2 clean sheets came against Swansea and whoever it was that when Huddleston started the games. So I think he's another one where if we get him back fit, it's almost, you don't want to rush him into the starting 11 because of his age and his potential issues with soft tissue injuries. But he's another one that could really start to swing the tide a little bit if we can get him fit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just that level of experience, the level-headedness, that he's used to that level. He's used to a higher level.
He's
over
calm.
his
He'll help the younger players.
And that's what they really need. You've got all these young guys who've not played at this level before. You need someone there just to say, let's settle down. I'll direct you around. And like, even with, he's not a pacey player, but when the times he's been playing, he's always moving. He always seems to be able to find himself in space quite easily. And he's calm under pressure, and he gets himself out of some potentially very, difficult situations with not a lot of effort, really. And I think that's the sort of thing that needs to be, passed on to some of these younger players, that the nous on the ball and the ability to manipulate a situation to your advantage in a way that isn't just, lobbing the ball downfield and running as fast as you can after it, which is sort of like our, go-to escape management plan. But I think, they are two losses that I think when they come back, if they come back and they're managed to the best possible way they can be, that I think they definitely will have an impact on how our season goes. Really disappointed for Honeyman, because I thought, this was his opportunity to prove all his doubters wrong. He came in at the end of the last season and couldn't quite do enough. He was sort of still getting back to speed with Championship, and last year absolutely killed it. Was ready to come back and show that he can perform at a higher level than League One, and unfortunately has just missed the whole lot with injury.
Yeah, almost a quarter of the season at this stage. And then the other one as well is obviously Coyle out with the suspension means that we'll get to see Josh Emmanuel in at right back, which could be an interesting option as well to see what he can do there. And one of the other sort of, I guess, idealistic suggestions floating around Twitter was the switch to a back three, which would then mean, operating with potentially Elder and Emmanuel as wing backs, which I think would really suit Emmanuel. Where again you could do a 3-5-2 sort of formation, but then you sort of, I guess the only issue with that then is that you're basically dropping KLP and Wilkes, which, hey, maybe they do need a rest and a change, but it's one of those ones where I think the formation makes a lot of sense, but then it's about fitting the personnel into it. Where yes, you might want to have Eaves and Tyler Smith up top, but then it's who drops out. But anyway, Emmanuel coming in at right back will be interesting to see as well. Could be an opportunity for him as well to grab that spot. I think Coyle's had a fantastic season, so I don't think he deserves to be dropped. But it may well be a case of, I guess it's only a 1-game ban, isn't it? Because it's a second yellow. Yeah. So it might just be that Emmanuel gets this game against Borough and then Coyle's back in after the break.
Yeah, I mean, it's strange though how football works, because if we happen to win against Middlesbrough, then surely you don't tinker with a winning formula, do you? So
yeah,
unless you had to. So and this is what happens though all the time. Players, you go, they've been hard done by. They've had a great season and they miss 1 or 2 games with a suspension or an injury or something, and all of a sudden their spot has they're gazumped. Their spot's taken by the replacement. So I really hope that Emmanuel comes in and has he's at his barnstorming best, so to speak. Has a strong game, and because I think they're quite similar, but I think Emmanuel offers a little bit more, I guess, physicality in that in his forward movement. But I think I'd actually sort of forgotten about that. Blissfully forgotten about the red card. That was the softest of touches. I can't believe that was given as a yellow, and then the clash on Elder wasn't given as anything. And
that was the comparison for me. It was that one with Elder where the same logic where Elder's making that run forward and gets taken off the ball, and you think, well, if the Coyle one is, you want to call it a cynical foul or whatever you want to justify it with, then surely that is on Elder as well. So
for a light push in the back versus a studs raised and he's clatters into him completely.
Oh, sorry, that one. Yeah,
that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
The early on where he got taken out in the box.
I mean, I thought that was, I think it would have been probably a soft red, but wouldn't have been shocked to see that given. But I thought it was at least definitely a yellow.
Yeah, I don't think he made contact with the studs, but it's still. I think it was just a body-to-body contact, but they smashed. I think they smashed knees or something when he planted his foot. But it's certainly in that reckless sort of a thing, and it very well could have ended up with a pretty serious injury for Elder. And if that happened, and it's because of this action, and all that we got was a drop ball, I mean, I was pissed as it was, so I'd have been absolutely livid.
Absolutely. Well, look, we'll wrap things up then, and see if you've got a score prediction for this one.
I'm sitting on the fence. I'm gonna go the 1-1 that I referenced earlier. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah, I think I'll probably go the same. I think if we can pick up another point, then that's good. If we can score, then that's good. I'd love to get the 3 points. Hopefully it's a 1-0 win for us. I don't know where the goals are going to come from. I mean, the one little bit of reassurance is the fact that we did beat Warnock's side last time in the championship when we were on that horrible run of form. So there's always sort of, causes for optimism in that sense. But yeah, probably a draw from me for this one as well. Well, thank you for joining me for this episode, Dan.
No, not a problem.
No worries. And thank you everyone for listening in. Until next time, which will be after the international break, so in 2 weeks' time, we'll be back to discuss the result of that Borough game, which is hopefully 3 points for the Tigers. But until then, come on,